Hello and welcome to the Transporter Room. I'm your host, Chris Garris, joined today by my co-host, Allison Leach Hyde. And Linda Pages. We are absolutely thrilled to introduce a true Hollywood legend and one of the most recognizable character actors of all time, the one and only Clint Howard. With a career spanning over 6 decades and more than 250 credits, Clint is a part of the foundational DNA of modern science fiction and pop culture. He holds the unique distinction of being the only actor to appear in 5 different eras of live-action Star Trek on television. Beyond the final frontier, Clint has an unforgettable presence in blockbusters and cult classics like Apollo 13, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Cocoon, and a memorable cameo in Solo, a Star Wars story. We're ready to dive into his unparalleled experiences from playing the young Balok to a Ferengi pirate. That's my favorite. And to hear his insights into his remarkable career across countless film genres. Now let's beam in Clint Howard. All right. So, Clint, I first off just say thank you for taking the time to join us today. When I saw that, I was like, really? Can I just really send that message and get him on here? And I'll be honest, I was like, is this real? But I'm checking all the boxes. Got the blue check mark, and I'm like, you can't get a blue check without having, who you really are. So yes, thank you for doing this with us, and I appreciate it. So yes, wow.
Well, listen, at this point, it is my pleasure. I appreciate it. I completely get it. And my wife, Kat, is the one that she, she, it's not that she sets these things up for me, but she really facilitates and makes it easy for me. And also, she has reminded me and teaches me the importance of doing this. Because, listen, this is a record now. Our conversation today is going to be a record, and people are going to be able to, years from now, they're going to be able to listen to it and watch it. I honestly, I don't know what there is to really see at this point, but I mean, I do have a lot of stories. I have a lot of experiences, and let's dive in.
All right.
So excited.
Well, yes, this is, yeah, Allison, I'm sorry. Keep on interrupting.
No, go ahead. At least for my thanking Clint for being here with us today. It's very exciting.
Thank you. This is super exciting. Thank you so much for taking the time to come hang out with us and chat with us.
Mm-hmm. So we do something a little different here. So, a lot of podcasts, will jump right into, the Star Trek aspect of everything. And, I don't like to do that because our listeners, and I'm one of them, really appreciate learning about the journey that brought you into the film industry, before we beam you to just discuss Star Trek. So, so that's kind of where, how, what got you into the film industry?
Well, obviously it was my parents.
Mm-hmm.
I was 2 years old when I did my first professional job.
Wow.
Mom and Dad had a dream. They came from the Midwest, and they had a dream of something better than what they had gone through as children. Now, they were products of the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
So when they went to college, they didn't know each other. They went to college. They went to the University of Oklahoma. My dad was the son of a farmer. My mom was the son of a butcher. And at the University of Oklahoma, they met. And they both shared this passionate dream of being in the entertainment business. And their audacity of not saying no, their audacity of deciding that they were going to go for it, is something that my brother and I both, admired and both completely appreciate, because I don't believe either one of us, Ron has said this, that we don't believe that we have that gumption to do something like what Mom and Dad did. But they did it, and they launched our family onto this incredible road. And it was not, there was no entertainment in either of the family's background. My mom's family, nobody entertained. My dad, nobody entertained. I mean, they were funny and they were charming people. My mom had a wonderful personality, and my dad was a especially gifted man. As far as entertainment background, I mean, what they did, I completely admire. And so, when I got started at the age of 2 and 3 years old, I had this sort of, I had learned the nuances of the business already by osmosis.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very comfortable. It was really simple. I was comfortable in front of a camera. I was comfortable in front of people entertaining. And my dad and my mom, but primarily it was my dad, he helped shape my attitude towards doing what actors do, which is communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll let you in on a little secret. As far as I'm concerned, it's pretty darn simple. I would not make the best acting coach. I can boil it down into just, a few simple sentences.
Mm-hmm.
Know where your character has been. Know what your character wants to do. Everybody's got motivation. Everybody's trying to do something. And each and every moment, that's what a human being comes with. And then you got to sort of shape that and deliver it. And also you have to deliver what the director wants, and you have to deliver what the material asks for. This is not, being an actor is not doing stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Being an actor, I'm not on my own. It's a team. Now my face is out there. I'm kind of at the tip of the spear because it's my face that's doing this, but it's writers writing, directors directing, wardrobe people doing their thing,
Mm-hmm.
makeup people doing their thing, the cameraman, doing his thing, the cinematographer making it look pretty, right down to after the thing's done, the film composer comes in and adds nuance with the soundtrack. And it very much is a collaborative thing. And if you understand your lane and you take what you do seriously, that's one thing that happened to me with my dad, is right away I was taught and I was understood that both my brother and I, Ron is 5 years older than me, that
Okay.
we were working in an adult world, and there was an expectation that we were going to behave correctly, and that we were going to not be, we were going to do adult things. We were going to be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't going to screw around, and it wasn't, I never felt intimidated by that situation. I always took it as a challenge. I was always the most prepared child. I was the most prepared actor on a set. By the time I got to the set on a Monday morning, I knew my lines. I knew what I needed to do. I knew my thought processes. It was a matter of executing.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked around at other actors, and a lot of the adults weren't quite, that tight.
Mm-hmm.
So I had confidence, and I just continued it, and with success, I just repeated.
Wow.
And it's worked for you for your entire life. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's amazing to hear your story like that. And, I did not, I'll be honest, I didn't realize that your parents were were involved in the entertainment industry as well. And that they're the ones that got you and your brother kind of into this. That's
And
good parents.
listen, the entertainment business is not untricky waters.
Oof.
There's, entertainment itself, when you've got groups of people laughing with you, or you have groups of people crying with you, and you've got powerful people putting their arm around you and
Mm-hmm.
telling you how good you are, that's an extremely intoxicating thing.
Oh, it has to be.
Oh, it
And
is. It
it has
is.
to be.
And it can be
And
intimidating for some. Some people
mhm,
get intimidated by the entire that. God, is somebody from some big famous agency or some other
mhm,
movie star or some big fat cat. They put their arm around you and tell you how good you are. It's
mhm.
it's as if they've given you a drug.
So last year I got to go be a guest at another podcast called the Decon Chamber, where they interviewed Bill Mooney, and listening to you talk about your child actor at that time and all that stuff sounds very familiar to what Bill was saying. How as a child actor, you've got to be on stage, you got to know what you're doing. And I'm wondering, for you, because you've been doing this for so long, did you have, or I guess what's the right word to say this, not like you ran into a famous actor where were you just getting like, oh my god, that's this person, like, and like Bill was telling us that like his parents and his friends were like, oh, you got to be in a thing with blah blah blah, and he was like, well, it's just Lucille Ball or whatever, because by that point in time, because y'all were both you're child actors, you've just been doing this, and it's just another day, it's another job.
It was. It
And
is just.
yeah.
It is. No matter what. As a child, listen. I can tell a funny story. I've told it before, and I think I did write about it in our. My brother and I wrote a book called The Boys, a memoir of Hollywood and family, and it really was a memoir about us growing up as juveniles in the business. It
Mm-hmm.
spilled over some into our adult lives, but primarily it was what was it like to be Opie? What was it like to be on Gentle Ben? And I remember, first of all, my dad, I love my dad. My dad was such a freaking great guy. He was my best friend. And when he passed away at the age of 89 years old, I really lost my best friend. And
Mm-hmm.
it was not easy for me. But man, he was a good dude. But he would get me so confident and prepared,
Mm-hmm.
not cocky, but confident and self assured that I figured out the moments. I don't have any words that are baffling me. I don't have any ideas that are over my head. He was such a great child actor whisperer that he would give it to me in a way to where I got it. I like it. Let's do it some more. Let's go. It's just playing. Even as
Mm-hmm.
an adult, acting is just playing. I'm
Okay.
not, you know, I'm not patching up anybody's heart. I'm not doing gallbladder surgery. I'm not deciding how much insulin to give somebody. I'm frigging just working with material and saying things and communicating. But when I was a child, I did an episode of Bonanza. And I was probably 6 years old at the time. It was before Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very powerful episode. It was a Christmas episode. And Bill Blinn, the writer, was a young writer at the time. He was the one that wrote the script. And it was called All Ye His Saints. And it was
Mm-hmm.
about a boy whose father got accidentally shot at his ranch. And it looked like the dad was going to die. And this little 5-year-old boy talked to this Indian and, what am I going to do? And he said, you need to go talk to God. And I said, where is God? And he goes, up in the mountains. God lives high in the mountains. Well, by God, for this little 5-year-old, 6-year-old kid, I looked up and I thought, Elijah, God lives in those mountains. I'm going to go talk to God. So I get on a donkey and I start riding up in the mountains to find God. And there was a character, Leif Erikson played the character. He was an on the run. He was a guy that had been accused of murder, and in fact, he probably had killed guys. And he was on the lam, and he looked like God. He had long white beard.
Mm.
He lived as a hermit up in the mountains, and I ended up running into him. He took me captive. He ended up Little Joe was chasing after me. He took Little Joe captive. There was a hostage situation. So I'm looking at God, and God has got a gun on me, and it was a really beautiful episode. If you ever get a chance, All Ye His Saints on Bonanza. But and this is I'm a little embarrassed by this, but I'm going to share it because we're in conversation here. I was so confident of the work that I had a scene with Lauren Green, the patriarch of the Ponderosa, the Cartwright family. And he was doing his scene. And after the scene was over, I went up to my dad and I go, you know, Dad, he's kind of hamming it up. Listen, I love Michael Landon. I connected with Michael Landon and I thought he was a great actor and I loved hanging around him, but I just didn't have that same vibe. I wasn't getting the same vibe from Lauren Green. So even as a little 6-year-old kid, I didn't call him out. I didn't say, hey, learn your lines. But I just felt like he may have been struggling.
Oh, God.
He may have been struggling a little bit if I had dialed in. So by the time I was 5 or 6 years old, I had an opinion of who was dialed in and who wasn't.
Dang. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I'm serious thinking like telling Adama, dial it in. Because that's what I remember, I'm thinking Battlestar Galactica,
Yeah.
70s version.
And of course,
the 2000s.
I learned.
I've only seen the 2000s.
You don't do that. You don't.
Yeah.
Actors are doing their best. Mm-hmm. The only thing, and it has carried with me. I mean, this is not a childhood thing. I didn't really recognize what was going on when I was a kid. But in the business of entertainment, in the business of fictional entertainment, very bright people, very sharp people, very interesting people are communicating. Now, some of those people suck the oxygen out of the room.
Yeah.
There are people that just, when you're around them, they're just sucking the oxygen out of the room, and it makes it harder to do your job. So, I've been in the presence of people who suck the oxygen out of the room. It makes life tougher, but still, I still have to act. I still have to do my job. In fact, I was just having a discussion with a young actor here not that long ago, and it was about the process of acting, and you have to be prepared to act with people you don't like.
Oh, I'm pretty sure there's at least 1 or 2 people on this side of the screen that could probably tell you that because they've done the acting thing.
Yeah, but it's just. But
Linda
listen,
and
Yeah.
Allison.
my job.
Yes.
My job. It does not matter whether that person is my friend or not. It does not matter whether I'm going to send that dude, and I don't want to use the wrong word.
Yeah.
I'm not going to send him a Christmas card. I don't even want to know where he lives. I don't. Honest to God, I just, but I'm going to do my job. I'm going to do my job to service the job. My job is to deliver for the people that hire me, for the people that have invested in me to make this project better. That's who I'm working for.
Yep.
And listen, I'll be cordial with everybody on a set, but it doesn't mean I have to like them.
Yep.
Now listen,
agree.
I probably have, and I'm not going to name names, but I probably have only run into 4 or 5 people in my career that I thought were real. I don't want to use the word real lowlifes, real beeholes.
Okay.
And listen, the vast majority of people end up being really beautiful, really nice, caring. And I'll give you a positive story here. I had the opportunity to work with Sly Stallone in a movie called Tango and Cash.
Okay.
And it was a big deal for me. I was a relatively young guy. I probably wasn't more than about 30 years old. And Sly was a big star. Friggin', he had already done Rocky, he'd done Rambo. He was friggin' a big star. But the scouting report said he was difficult. The scouting report said, oh, geez, you get working with him? So I was prepared. As it turns out, my day working on Tango and Cash was one of the better days I've ever had on a show, and my scene was with him. It was back and forth, one actor back and forth with another actor. He didn't cause any trouble. He didn't suck the oxygen out of the room. He was a giving, caring scene partner. So there was a case where the scouting report was wrong,
Mhm.
you know, and I just, so listen, I don't know, maybe the people that worked with him, it was a bad day or something like that. But my experience with Sly is, he couldn't have been a better scenes partner.
Sweet. All right. So I was just watching Solo the other day, and I love your bit as the android fight club manager, I guess. And I wanted to know how it was working with Phoebe Waller-Bridge. She's very funny, she's brilliant, and I wondered, was she improving a lot in her lines? Were they all really set out for what you guys were going to do? And was it a little distracting with, I'm sure, what her motion capture costume looked like?
Well, no, first of all, I had a wonderful time on it. And
Yeah.
I was so proud that, they had hired my brother to be at the tip of the spear of that operation. I mean, my goodness, you cannot imagine how pro making those Star Wars movies are.
Oh,
With Kasdan over there writing, sitting in a chair, Kathleen Kennedy there sitting in a chair, paying attention, and my brother, when he was 16 years old, he really got the bug to be a filmmaker. And I was 11, and I was in his first legitimate little short films, and I know how much he wanted it. And to know that my big brother frigging did it. Here he was with confidence and assurity. He was leading this frigging massive effort. And by the way, it's a good movie. I thought
absolutely it
I
is.
thought Solo worked really good. And I'll just to let you know, there weren't too many screenings. Star the Lucas people, they kept the movie pretty much under wraps. There was
Yeah,
an opportunity in Los Angeles that Ron had kind of a friends and family screening in LA, and Ron he didn't invite me because
really.
because you know what he said to me? He goes, I don't think this is your cup of tea. I don't, because listen, Ron and I were very, very close. He knows what I think. He knows I had seen, I had seen three of the Star Wars movies in my life. I saw the first one, I saw the second one, and I saw the one with Jar Jar Binks. And so anyway, well, of course I was going to act in it. Ron calls me, I'm going to act in it. And when he pitched me the idea that the character, he's a crusty guy, he's like Mickey from Rocky, you know, he's crusty. I thought, yeah, this will be great, and it's business, and it was a nice job, and I took it. Flew over to London to work on the movie. Watched my brother. It was just a friggin' no brainer. I had a wonderful time, and working with Phoebe, she was really good. And no, there was improv only to the point where Ron gives all the actors always an opportunity to contribute. But improv, as it's known, is just extemporaneously from you throwing in lines.
Yeah.
No, by the
Okay.
time we rolled cameras, we all knew what we were going to do. You
Awesome.
know, I knew I was going to say, "I'll flip your switch." You
And
Hmm.
she
know,
was going to respond with, if only you can find it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I'm sure she came up with that.
Yeah.
I am sure she's very inventive,
Yeah.
and of course, I knew there was a lot of CGs, but the great thing about Lucas, well, not George anymore, but
Mm,
the whole
yeah.
idea of doing the Star Wars thing is the practical effects are still there. There are still guys setting
Hmm.
squibs on the set. There's
Mhm.
still smoke in the air. There's still, they add a lot of nuance, they add a lot of detail in animation, but when you're there on the set, yeah, I knew she had a little, kind of a skin tight costume with dots.
Mhm.
but so I knew. So
Yeah.
what? She was there, and doing the bit where she reaches and grabs me and gets me off the ground. It was a great few days of work, and it was
Yeah.
great. Woody Harrelson was the. I didn't work with Woody, but Woody was
Mhm.
around. It was great to connect with him, and Warwick Davis. He was around, and Warwick and I are old friends, and our
Oh,
families.
really?
My wife Kat, and I. In fact, we had a we had a conflict. We were supposed to go see them this past summer. We were supposed to go to a horror convention in the UK, and as it turned out, we couldn't go. And we were going to spend a couple of days at Warwick's place, and uh, anyway, listen. I enjoyed the experience, and you talk about my connection to the Star Trek universe. The fact that I dipped over, and I'm standing on the other side of the fence doing Star Wars. You know,
Nothing wrong with
Yeah,
that.
that puts
I'm
that's all
fans
good.
of both.
that puts me in very rarefied
Yeah.
company, if not on my own alone. You know,
True, 100%.
yeah. And I tell you, oh no, oh boy. Well, listen. You know what? God bless.
Oh,
God
yeah.
bless.
Oh, like,
And
nothing wrong.
listen. I am so grateful to have been part. I was so grateful that I got that role back in 1966. I auditioned for that role.
Really?
If I had
Yeah.
performed poorly during the audition, there's some actor somewhere in the world that auditioned for that part and didn't get it.
Mhm.
It's a kind of an amazing thing to think about. I was not offered the role. I was offered the opportunity to compete for the role,
Mhm.
Hmm.
and I remember I do have memories of rehearsing for the audition.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Wow,
Wow.
yeah.
that's so cool.
That
And
is
I
cool.
know, and I have, listen, it was a long time ago, but I do have memories of working on the show. But I
Hmm.
also have what now throughout the years, I have this wonderful, it's more than just a memory, it's a feeling of being part of this family. And for a long time, I did not appreciate it. For a long time, I did not understand what Gene Roddenberry and the original people that launched Star Trek had put into motion. And also, you got to take your cap off and tip it to the people that have kept the
Mhm.
the world moving Trek.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
60 years this coming year.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I was there. I was there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Episode
But
8. Yes.
but listen, the choices that they've made in casting throughout the years, and the people they've associated themselves with, like Jonathan Frakes.
God,
Jonathan
yes.
Frakes is a frigging absolutely wonderful human being. He
Yeah.
directed me on my episode of Deep Space Nine.
Oh,
Oh, I didn't know
okay.
Awesome.
Yeah,
We'll
and
definitely get into that at some point.
I've run into him over the years at various events and stuff, and it's they listen. Whoever initially looked at that young actor and said, we want him to be in Deep Space Nine or whatever he was in first.
Hmm.
Next generation. But
Next
yes,
He was
you're
in
generation.
right.
Next Gen.
Yep.
Oh,
Yes.
that's right. He directed. He just was directing on
He,
Deep Space Nine.
Yep.
yes, correct.
Good choice. So then
Mhm.
you got to say good choice in hiring the casting directors.
Yep.
Hmm.
Junie Lowry was wonderful. Yeah, she did
Yeah.
such a great job for the 90s Trek. I think all of them
Well,
she was the main casting director for.
exactly. And when we talked to, David Livingston, he was one of the first ones to the director school. And then Jonathan, they've
Yep.
all gone through, they went through Rick Berman, their directors in training because they had a specific way they really wanted Star Trek done. And I mean, we're kind of jumping ahead, but you can tell when Frakes or LeVar Burton have directed this episode of Star Trek.
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
It's
you definitely can.
it's got a completely different feeling than a non actor from the series does.
Yep.
And God, I don't know. Does God have something to do with it? I mean, is it seriously whatever,
Must be.
whatever, whatever glue, whatever cosmic glue is out there putting the mosaic together. Listen, I have a further story. I mean, with Discovery and Strange New Worlds, you know, I was reintroduced into the Star Wars, into the Star Trek universe through a guy named Akiva Goldsman.
Yep.
And I knew Akiva Goldsman because he had worked with my brother on a couple of projects. And I actually had this moment with Akiva that I will never, ever forget. We were at my niece's Bryce, my niece Bryce. She got married and she had a huge wedding. It was frigging, they had a couple of honey wagons set up to hand so the workers at the frigging wedding could go to the bathroom.
Yep.
It was a massive thing. It was beautiful. It was,
Yep.
Bryce had just gotten off of Spider-Man and she was really rolling, and her and Seth wanted to have a big wedding. And it was a beautiful wedding. But we were there. I was standing next to Akiva Goldsman, and I had known him, but I hadn't really ever talked to him.
Yeah.
And we were just having kind of polite, you know, wedding conversation for a brief minute. And all of a sudden, there was a woman. And she was in kind of a Peter Pan outfit, and she was playing a harp, a walking harp. It was a harp that, you know, you could use in a marching band.
Wow.
Okay.
And this woman starts playing this harp like the Pied Piper, and her job is to lure everybody from this staging area down to where the wedding is going to be.
Yes.
Now, check me if I'm wrong, but this woman in these leotards that looks like Peter Pan with this harp doing this, I found it pretty funny, and so did Akiva. And it's like we looked at each other and goes, I don't think we're ever going to see anything like this again. And we shared this wonderful moment. And you know, I have the utmost respect for Akiva, and I thought his work with my brother on A Beautiful Mind and then Cinderella Man, he's an unparalleled writer and an unparalleled thinker. And so, you know, it's been years now, but when I got a call, and I guess it was, you know, it was fine. My agent got the call, but then Akiva contacted me and said, I'd like you to be in Discovery here. I'm the showrunner, and I got this great idea for you. And oddly enough, as far as Discovery goes, they cut the idea out of the episode. Originally, for all the Trekkies that are, you know, that have seen every episode,
Yep.
I play this creepy Orion guy,
Uh-huh.
you know, kind of bluish green paint and everything. And it was an exotic episode. We were at this strip club kind of where there were dudes and ladies dancing. And I played this lecherous guy. And the ensign on the show, she goes to this place and ends up basically getting drugged. I give her this stuff that is vapors. It's vapors from a volcano, and it whacks her out. I mean, a story point in the episode, she literally faints, and it was me doing it to her. And I wasn't taking advantage of her. I just thought she might like to have some of this stuff, you know. So in the original script, you meet me, and I'm the creepy guy that hands her the vapors, and she takes a whiff and she passes out. Well, she comes to, and I'm standing there looking at her, and I turn around and I grab a glass and I go, Tranya. And that's why they flew me up to Toronto to do that bit. They must have ended up deciding the Tranya thing was a little cutting too close to the bone.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to throw their episode in that direction. So I don't know, it might be available on some sort of director's cut. But
It's true, or a deleted scene. Yeah.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that, probably.
But that's
Tranya,
Yeah,
and
Toronto.
they cut it. But Akiva, you know, first of all, that like the Star Wars movie, they make Star Trek as good as you can make friggin'
Now,
entertainment.
yes.
Yep.
So I did that. Akiva directed the episode, and that was fun. And then he was still staying on as a showrunner. And then the Strange New Worlds, I guess I don't think he's a showrunner now, but he has been, and he's very happy with the Star Trek family. Um, and I got a call from my agent saying they'd like to use you in Strange New Worlds, and I thought that'd be great, and. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be in that world, and I appreciate at the time personally,
Mhm.
I was still suffering some from the loss of my dad. And so in my mind, I kind of checked out. I wasn't on the streets or anything, but I wasn't doing very well. And this opportunity to go and play in Toronto on Strange New Worlds was wonderful. And I went up there and worked. And I know that they continue to make Star Trek.
Yep.
They continue to do it. And
Yep.
I haven't been in every one, and that's okay. But I would
You-
love to be in another one. I would love to work more. If they find, I'm an Indian.
Academy?
Certainly, if there's a spot for
Absolutely.
some, I don't know what I can do. All sorts of stuff. I
Yes,
can
you got it.
an audition right here. You see, I can get,
No, that episode of Strange New Worlds is one of my favorites from season 2. It is gut wrenching to watch. I feel like it was like a throwback to MASH in a way, where we hadn't seen the horror that our medical personnel go through in war since
Yes.
MASH. And it was just, it is heartbreaking. And I love that episode. And I thought you were fabulous in it as well. And I was excited we got to see your face. You weren't behind Ferengi makeup or
Yeah.
Orion.
Yeah. No makeup involved for once.
I
You got
had
to
a
play
couple.
with Babs and Jess. That had to have been fabulous.
Yes,
loved
it
them.
was. It was a blast. I loved it. I loved playing in that world, and they gave me a lot of good stuff to say. And there was a writer, Perez Javi. God, I'm going to brain lock on his name, and I shouldn't because he's a wonderful dude. He was sort of the guy running the show at that time. It was his script, and we got along swimmingly. And it's just Davey Perez. So yeah, I just
Awesome.
again, God, who would have thunk from 1966? Who would have thunk that this little kid would be on the show, have that experience, be a part of something like that, and then continue on and do a wide range of work. I mean, listen, I've been in some big A studio movies.
Yeah.
I was in, little crummy horror movies. I've been in horror movies that are very affecting. When
Oh,
I
yeah.
when I was, I don't want to get weird here, but when I was 12 or 13 years old, I did an episode of The Night Gallery that Rod Serling wrote, where I predicted the end of the world.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the boy who predicted earthquakes.
Yep.
And that's a powerful episode. And anyway, and continuing on, I was the ice cream man, for Christ's sakes.
Well, and like you were saying,
And the dog catcher in the
yeah.
Adams Family, like
Yes,
Yeah.
everywhere. And
Kate, the caterer in Cat in the Hat.
yes,
I was both in The Grinch, and I was both in Cat in the Hat.
yes.
Mike
Oh, yeah.
Myers played the cat, and Jim Carrey played the Grinch.
Well, and you were in all the Austin Power movies, and I know, I'm pretty sure all three of us, love, I mean, Apollo
Apollo
13.
13 is
I mean, that's just, I'm going to let Allison talk about that, but
Oh,
it was
yes.
I loved it.
yes, whenever I bawl every single time they land, and just every moment of that movie where everyone is striving for this goal of rescuing these people who are going to die. Like, there's
Yeah.
no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And every minute of that movie is so well executed. But I had a very specific question for you on this. And that is, what was it like to portray a historical, like a truly historical moment you lived through as a child, as an adult? Like, did it change how you remembered it?
To be absolutely honest, I don't really
Okay.
remember Apollo 13. I mean, historically, yeah, you can look it up real quick and find out what happened. And certainly I believed it. I know exactly, I know exactly the circumstances where I was and where I was at when Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. I was a big part of the space program. Um, but first of all, the only thing better than watching Apollo 13 is having been in it.
Yeah.
Oh God.
We went
Yeah.
to a we went to like a technical school. We
Sweet.
went to mission control training camp for a full week, where every day there was about 20 actors that were regulars on the people that were going to be there in the MOCA regularly. That we showed up like a call time, and
Wow.
the technical advisors, Dave Scott and Jerry Griffin and Jerry Bostick, and I'm probably leaving a couple of people out. Dave Scott, did I mention him? He's the first man to drive on the moon. He was a technical advisor on the movie. So
Yeah.
while we were on the set, and you know how it is on a movie set where there's literally hours and hours and hours with nothing going on. You could grab a cup of coffee and go sit in a chair next to Dave Scott and say, "So Dave, talk to me a little bit about driving on the moon."
Yeah.
And you know what he said? He goes, they spent millions and millions of dollars to develop the lunar rover, and he got into it. And within a minute or two, he recognized that they could have just retrofitted a Volkswagen with a hydrogen engine, and it would have done the same thing. That
Yep.
they way overkilled on the technology. That ultimately, you weigh a buggy down, you put a hydrogen motor in it, and you friggin' put it in gear.
Oh
Yep.
my gosh.
So anyway,
Well, yeah.
those
Well,
stories, and here's a little inside baseball about Apollo 13. The guy, all the guys there's a collection of probably about 15 guys that were regular, that were there was a lot of people involved in
Yeah.
the MOCR, but we had like a little club that developed, and for years and years and years we would meet monthly for lunch.
oh wow.
The fellows of Apollo 13, the fellows of the MOCR would meet for lunch. And once in a while, I think Ron went to a couple of lunches, and Tom Hanks, he heard about it and he came to a couple of lunches. But so we had this camaraderie
Mm-hmm.
that stayed with me.
Mhm.
Chris Ellis and just all sorts of guys, Spanos and John Short, and Ed Harris. What a great leader Ed
Oh
was.
gosh.
He was
Ed,
amazing in that
He
movie.
was.
yes, he
I
was.
don't. I can't think of anybody else better could play Gene Kranz than Ed.
Mm-mm.
No.
I
Ed was
mean,
awesome. Ed took it
and
serious. Getting to act with Ed is, I've got about three or four, I got three incidences of working with really beautiful, highly talented people who I looked at and I went, my God, I'm lucky. One of them was Ed.
mm.
One of them was with Robert De Niro. Getting to work
Okay.
with getting to
Yeah.
work with Bob was absolutely unparalleled. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and Kate Blanchett was the other.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Getting
Oh
to
yeah.
act, getting to do a day. It was on a movie called The Missing that Ron directed.
Yep.
And my scene, it was all day. I worked all day with Kate Blanchett, and she had just had a child about 9 months before.
Mhm.
Oh.
And that her child was on the set,
Mm.
and I so admired her. She was there to work.
Mhm.
She never got distracted by the baby. She didn't call a timeout so she could go and spend time with the baby. She was aware that the baby was there, but the baby was at base camp. And while we were doing our work, which was pretty much all day except for the 45-minute lunch break, she was down there working,
Mm-hmm.
sitting on an apple box, off camera, doing her dialogue,
Mhm.
staying focused, staying in it. And I thought, wow, she's got
Oh
chops,
gosh.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
Ed had chops. My story, my story about Apollo 13 is, we had a couple of pretty intense scenes together.
Mhm.
Because when the oxygen tank blew up, all eyes turned to Cy, because
Yep.
I'm the man monitoring the
Yeah.
environment, the oxygen of the of the command module. service module. All of a sudden, I go, Gene, this is a quadruple failure. This can't happen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it obviously has happened. And
Yes.
I got that directly from Cy Liebergott, who I met and became friends with over the years. And Cy, I didn't meet him in person until after the movie, but I talked to him on the phone a lot. And he just simply said, listen, there was so much ratty data. First of all, when they were watching their monitors, they were always getting funny data. They would call them the funnies or ratty data, and you would sort through it. Well, that can't be right. There is oxygen. There is oxygen on board, but the oxygen levels would be reading 0, and yet we're talking to the people, so it's ratty data. But anyway, when they counted up that it was a quadruple failure, there were 4 major things that had gone wrong. Well, every time they ran any kind of simulation, a quadruple failure would mean death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it can't happen. So anyway, Ed and I do this great scene, and I hope he's quit too. I quit smoking cigarettes years ago, but back then, of course, everybody smoked, and everybody at Mission Control smoked. And by God, my character smoked. My character smoked a pipe, and I was smoking a pipe and smoking cigarettes. And Ed Harris was smoking Lucky Strikes, and we're just in the flow of working, and we do our scenes, we do our moment, close up, intense, cut, going to lunch, and we're walking back to our dressing rooms, and he's smoking a cigarette and I'm smoking a cigarette, and he's pissed off. And I go, Ed, what's up, man? I thought it went really good. I thought we were really dialed in. I thought we did good work. And he, simply enough, he said to me, he goes, I wish I could be as good on camera as I am off camera. And I said to him, you too? And he goes, yeah. There's that, when you're off camera and still dialed in, there's an intensity, and yet you're relaxed because the camera's not rolling. It's a weird thing that happens when the camera is right there looking at you. There's a little muscle in here that can tend to friggin' tighten up, and it really fouls with your rhythm. Yeah. And that's what Ed was talking about. Ed was talking about he gets tight. And listen, as we all know, it was friggin' great work, and Ed is a giant in the business.
Yes.
But yet in his mind, he just wished they could turn the camera around when he was doing off-camera dialogue for me.
Wow. That scene, your face, you're like, this cannot happen. You were just so intense, and you're like, I'm telling you what the data says. This is not possible.
And here's another thing. Here's another thing that research gets you. And I did, getting to be around the technical advisors and getting to talk with Cy as much as I talked with him for, and he admitted to me, and this was huge. He admitted to me, he goes, I really didn't want to be there. Now, some guys stayed around. Some guys, when their shift was over, they would stay around. When Cy's shift was over, he put his frigging stuff down and went home. He did not feel like he was being a hero. He didn't want to be a hero. He so that humanity that he had, I was able to use what I learned from Cy to add to my performance, because the fact is, these guys weren't cowboys. This was not the right stuff, where everybody gets on their horse and goes and kicks ass. No, it was men who had been so well trained to do the procedure time and time again, and the simulations, and then thinking about what possibly could go wrong, and then building a procedure for what would go wrong. What would go wrong if this dial went out? Well, easy. Then we go over here and do this, and anyway, I just found it was a dream come true.
Oh yeah. Well, and like you said, you've had this career from, from a child up to Apollo. And then I just recently, thanks to Linda, realized that you also have done a lot of horror movies. I did not know that.
Yes.
And she showed me a video last night of, I guess maybe your most recent
I showed him
stuff.
about 3 minutes of the end of your character scene in Terrifier 3, and I told him exactly when to stop watching so that he was not traumatized by Santa's unfortunate demise.
Well,
So,
listen, hats off to Damien Leone, Phil
yes,
Falcone, and of course David Howard
representing.
Thornton. Now, there you go. There's
Yeah,
art.
it says Art the Clown, a real gut buster.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Listen, Kat and I met those guys at conventions. We went to a couple of cons, actually, and it was my wife's, her instincts. She saw, she saw people walking around as Art the Clown, and this is several years ago.
Yeah.
And she goes, "What is this?" And somebody said, "That character is in a movie called Terrifier 2." And she said, "This is going to be huge." And then she met David Howard Thornton, the guy who played,
Yes.
and he's, what a mensch he is. And then Damien Leone is really brilliant in his own way. And these guys doing Terrifier 3, to do a little movie like that and to do the kind of box office it did and create the imagery that it creates. Listen, it's
Insane.
not for everybody.
No.
It's not, no, it's not. I have a hard time watching it. I watched it, but I wouldn't choose to watch it again.
Yeah.
I just I don't get that kind of satisfaction out of horror. But I like comedy. I like it when I like comedy to do comedy because making people laugh is fun. And it's also entertaining, you know. So anyway, yes, I've been. Now I'll tell you, I was in a movie in 1994 called Ice Cream Man, and it was a little B horror movie, and it had kids in it, and it was kind of goofy, and our tongues were firmly planted in our cheek when we made it. And yet it has resonated and has built this huge cult following. And I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, we got it in our heads, me and Kat and Norman Apstein, we got it in our heads that we should do something, an Ice Cream Man movie. And Norman and I talked about it, and we didn't want to try to do a sequel or a part two or anything like that. So we invented a new story, and the movie is called Another Ice Cream Man. That's the name of it. And it's another character. And I'm going to co-direct it. We're in pre-production now. We're going to shoot it in the spring of 26. We got a lot of great surprises. I can't give you anything because contractually, we have a great cast lined up. I will tell you one story is that, years and years and years ago, I was in a relative of mine's first directing job. My brother did a movie called Grand Theft Auto, and it was his first directing job, and I worked in that movie for scale. And we basically we set up an agreement that I'll be in your first movie if you'll be in mine. And so I'm going to be directing another Ice Cream Man, and I think there's going to be a spot for my brother.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
That is so cool.
Before
Yeah.
we move on from horror, as a huge Halloween Horror Nights fan, I have to ask, A, did you know that there was a haunted house based off of the Terrifier franchise, both at Orlando and Hollywood? And B, did you make it over there and did you get to do the house?
Well, yes, I knew. I was very aware. We're pretty close with Damien and David and Phil, and knew that Universal had gone into business with them. And yes, my wife and our daughter Rafi, we went to the premiere of Halloween Horror Nights, and we got in line to go through the maze, go through that particular house, and our 15-year-old daughter got cold feet, and in support of her and in support of my wife, who said, I'm going to stick around with my daughter. If she doesn't want to go, I'm not going to go. And I said, well, listen, if you guys aren't going to go, I'm not going to go. Because first of all, I don't get scared. They're actors. They're frigging, it's
Yeah.
non-union actors, doing everything to scare you. And they can't scare you too much because they would call it Clint studio tours. They scared me into a heart attack. They were, but anyway, so no, we saw, we enjoyed it, we embrace it, we celebrate it, and I have not actually gone inside.
Well, I did the Orlando one enough times for everyone in your family, so
Okay.
it's all good. Yeah.
Hey,
It
it's
was awesome.
it's wonderful that
It was amazing.
that movie was made for a couple of $1 million. And if you go to Box Office Mojo and you look, that movie in theaters made $90 million.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
it's
And that
insane.
and that's not even where they make their money. They make their money streaming. They make their money with DVDs. They make their money. Listen, the box office, the theaters is only gravy, and yet look at the bowl of gravy that they dish themselves.
Yeah,
Oh my
it's
God.
pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That's
So
amazing.
anyway, yeah, it is. I did kid shows. I played voices in classic Disney. I was in The Jungle Book. I was in Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day. I did Star Trek. I would pull the bear around by a chain in Gentle Ben. Um, I've been in horror movies. I've done those comedies like Waterboy and
Oh
Austin
God,
Powers.
yes. I love that.
Yeah, so it's wow,
Oh yeah.
60 years. 60, no, not 60, 64 years.
Wow.
In a couple of months, I will have professionally been an actor for 64 years.
That's amazing. That's a great career.
Yeah,
Oh my
you're
gosh.
telling me.
Well, I do.
You've witnessed,
That's
you've
yes.
experienced it. We've only witnessed it, and we think it's amazing.
I
So
know exactly.
Well, I get it. I do get it that, listen, you
Uh,
guys, you almost everybody grew up watching me.
mhm.
They,
yes.
Yeah.
you were little, I was little, or you were little, I was young.
Mhm.
Um, and now to like we go to horror conventions or pop conventions, and people my age will come up and talk to me, and I could tell they're blown away. Well, of course they're blown away. When they were 5 years old, they were watching me. When they were 7 years old, they were
Mhm.
watching me play with a bear, and now they get to see me in real life.
Oh, I know. Well, and speaking of conventions here in a second, we have something to show you, a picture that we will be showing you here in a little bit. And I think we've got about three more questions, give or take.
Cool.
I know Allison's got something to ask, and Linda, and then I have my final wrap up question to ask everybody.
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of like mush them together, and it's going to be. You have a really unique place in Star Trek history because you have been on the show the longest. Like you've been on from the beginning to the most recent live action. And how is Star Trek the same? And how has it changed over your experiences? Because you've been in so many different shows.
Wow. So, well, from my chair, how has it changed? Um, there was a spirit that that had some humor. There was a spirit about the original show. Trouble with Tribbles, you
Yep.
know.
Yay!
There was just I think Strange New Worlds kind of went after it and tried to capture. I know they did an episode. I didn't see it. They did an episode that was a musical.
Yes. It was
Yeah.
really good.
It
So in
was
a
actually
way,
good.
it's like I really appreciate that effort. Listen, Star Trek was an experiment. Star Trek was an experiment. It was not a foregone conclusion that it was going to stay on the air. In fact, as we all know, it didn't.
Hmm.
You know, and now they've built these shows that are larger than life, and in my opinion, and it's only my opinion, sometimes I feel like the heaviness that the show itself carries weighs it down some.
Mhm.
you know. But hey, listen, I know. I'll tell you what. This has been years and years ago. My brother's wife, Cheryl, who, who, I listen. I've known Cheryl since she was 16 years old. Their first Ron and Cheryl, they were their first dates basically, and Cheryl, huge Deep Space Nine fan, huge
That's
Next
my
Gen
favorite
fan.
one. Yeah.
She emotionally, intellectually bought right into it and loves it, and so I appreciate it. You know, I the longevity. Think about it. Think about that. They concocted this thing, back in the '60s.
Mm-hmm.
A guy that didn't. He wasn't. Well, I guess Gene Roddenberry was science fiction, but he had done a western the year before.
Yes.
Yep.
Gene Roddenberry was a showrunner on television, and so he had this idea to do basically kind of a western in space, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Wagon train to the stars.
Yep.
Yeah, and it worked.
Yep.
You know,
Absolutely. No,
and
I mean,
when I go to conventions and stuff, you know, uh, more often than not, somebody will come up to me who is a rocket scientist. Somebody will come up to me and hand me a business card, and they're a PhD in frigging astrophysics, and they
oh
want to have
boy.
a conversation with me. And I'm touched. It's cool. Thank you. And it
Mm-hmm.
just again, it goes back to the appreciation that I have for the original creators of the show that created something that would fire the imagination of
Yeah.
people.
Exactly. And I love what you just said about scientists and people coming up to you because our newest friend here, Linda, is her story is that. And I'm going to let her tell her story real quick as well.
I am a physics major and math minor. I'm a junior right now. I'll graduate next year. Because I grew up watching Star Trek. It's 100% what inspired me to pursue science. And it's what I use to remind myself why I'm doing this when I have days where I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is too much math. I never want to see another variable ever again. So thank you so much for just being part of this franchise. And it really has inspired so many of us to pursue STEM, and especially women in STEM. I think Star Trek has inspired, especially when you get later into the series like Voyager. There's just so many of us in this field who are doing life-changing and world-changing research that just would never have been inspired to do this, would never even consider this as an option if Star Trek didn't exist. So thank you for being part of a franchise that showed a future where all this is possible. We really appreciate it.
Well, you're most welcome, and I am very grateful, and I'm grateful for the fact that casting directors years ago decided to call my agent and have me read for a role. And I'm so grateful that my dad prepared me to win that role, and that God has been grateful enough to keep me alive so I can enjoy the fruits of the universe's labor.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of the impact that Star Trek has had, um, obviously you were very, very young when you worked on the original series, but did you have any idea at all? Did you have any kind of feeling of how big this would eventually be and how impactful and how much the series would grow and change?
Oh no, not at all. Yeah, not at all. I had no idea. Silly little sci-fi show. I and I honest,
It
I hon-
is. It is.
I
Really
honest to
is.
God, I honest to God didn't give it a lot of credibility till I was in my 50s,
Wow.
and
Wow.
I finally recognized, wow, this has had an impact. This had a real
Mm-hmm.
impact. I mean, people like MASH, people like All in the Family, but Star Trek had an impact.
Yeah.
Another show that had a huge impact in its own completely different way was the Andy Griffith Show.
Mhm.
The
Mm-hmm.
Andy Griffith Show just it was so well written and it was so well conceived and it was but the Star Trek, the impact of Star Trek, and one brief story, and I've told this before, and I'll make it really brief. I auditioned for Star Wars, the original movie, and I auditioned for Luke Skywalker.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
and it was they had
Wow.
there was a big casting session. There must have been 20 or 30 actors sitting around at 20th Century Fox. And I knew that George Lucas was making this sci-fi movie because he had directed Ron in American Graffiti. So they knew who I was. And Fred Roos, who was a confidant of George's, he had been a casting associate on the Andy Griffith Show. So anyway, they called me in, and I was excited, and I read the material, and I didn't think I was quite right for it, but still, I'm going to go. Here I was about 16 years old, getting a chance to work in an adult situation to play a young leading man in a big movie. I was excited. So I wait my turn. I see Mark Hamill. I'll never forget this. Mark Hamill was there at the casting session. I think he was behind me a little bit. And I finally, my turn to go into the office. I walk in. Francis Coppola is sitting over here to my left. And he's larger than life.
Oh yeah.
Francis was a mountain of a man, intellectually, still is, but I mean, but physically he was big and imposing. And there was another guy in the room, Fred Roos. Fred Roos was an associate of George's and an associate of Francis's. And Fred recently passed away. He was a wonderful guy. And then George had a confidant named Gino Havens, who was kind of an assistant of George's, and I knew him because I'd met these guys a little bit. I'd met Gino Havens on American Graffiti. I didn't work on graffiti, but I was around for a little bit. Anyway, I didn't see George. George was in a big leather chair, and the chair was turned away from me. So he spins that chair around. He looks at me, and he goes, "Commander Balok, Corbomite maneuver." And I am blown away. In my mind, I'm thinking, George, get an effing life. See, I was trying to get an adult role.
Yeah.
And in my mind, he just made a callback to a job I did when I was a baby.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was
Wow.
thrown. And
Yeah.
I didn't have an appreciation for the Star Trek legacy. And all I kept thinking is, he's talking about me. He knows me as a baby. But he said, "Corbomite maneuver." And I fumbled through the audition, and then they thanks very much, and I didn't have a callback. And okay, that's fine. Years later, I had an opportunity to talk with George. He didn't remember.
Oh, George Lucas.
But I sure did. And yet, my God, as a matter of fact, I think George had a pretty good effing life, and he's still going
Yeah.
strong. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Exactly.
mean,
All-
I don't think
all
he's
in.
had
Yeah.
yeah. I think he's doing pretty good.
Yes, he is. George is a wonderful man. And I'll tell you one thing about working on Solo. When Ron was excited, when he found out that they were going to let the two directors go and they were going to hire Ron, and Ron had some meetings with him. And Ron was longtime friends with George. And when the deal got settled, Ron called George and said, "George, I just want to tell you that they're going to have me replace these two guys, and I'm going to go to work and I'm going to finish doing Solo." And George's answer to Ron was, "Well, I told him to hire you in the first place."
Oh. So
Yeah. So anyway, there it is.
I just gotta say, it just kind of blows my mind to think that literally he just picks up the phone and calls George Lucas. I'm like,
Well, they've known each other. They've known each other for a long time.
Oh yeah, forever.
forever. I mean,
I mean,
almost
well,
50
listen.
years now. But yeah.
Ron worked with George Lucas when George was basically a kid.
Yep.
I mean,
Wow.
when George directed American Graffiti, Ron had a lot more experience than George.
Oh, I guess
When
you're
Ron
right. He did.
when Ron worked on American Graffiti, Ron had 15 or 16 years in the entertainment business.
Very true.
So anyway, George had 4 or 5.
Oh wow. Okay, I had not thought, but yes,
Yeah.
totally makes sense.
Yeah. Anyway,
Well, so we have I've got a picture here because I know you said you've done conventions, and I'm just gonna say this: I really hope you do get to come out to Vegas
Yes.
this August for the 60th anniversary. You've got to be there. I'm like,
well, make a phone call. Make
oh,
a
don't
phone
worry.
call.
There's 2 of us on here that know the person who to call.
Okay.
We do that, but
We would
no,
love to go. We would love to
So-
go for the 60th.
Awesome.
That'd be awesome. Okay, Allison apparently went to a convention that you were at one time, and
And here we are.
Oh, wow.
So yes,
Wow. Where
I
was
got a
it?
selfie with you. It'll be 2 years ago in January when you were at the Albuquerque Comic Con.
Awesome. Hold on. I'm just like any fan. I'm just like any fan.
Oh.
Anyway, listen, I appreciate that. Was I nice?
You were wonderful. Yes.
Cool.
And I had my teenager with me, and when I got my selfie, the person who was with you was like looking at my son like, "Are you going to be in the picture?" I'm like, "No, this is for me." My son is following me around today and learning what conventions are. I'm the fan. He's like, "Okay." So,
Oh my gosh.
That's
Well,
so awesome.
Thank
yes,
you very
I
much.
had a lovely time meeting you in person and a wonderful time speaking with you today too.
Yes.
So thank
Oh,
you.
well,
And
listen, it
yes,
was a wonderful conversation.
it has been. And now I have my last question that I have to ask
Okay.
everybody. And that is, what Star Trek technology do you wish existed today?
I don't know whether it's a technology, but that little thing that Spock would do, where you could just put fingers on you and you could fall, you would go to
Vulcan
sleep.
nerve pitch.
The Vulcan nerve thing. Yeah, I'd like to know that.
You know, I know some people who are bad at falling asleep. That might not be a bad thing. Like, here you go. Now.
That's an awesome answer. That's
the-
got to
great.
be a one of a kind answer. I don't think we've
It
ever
is.
had someone say that on
Nope.
our transporter. That's
We have
awesome.
not.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Replicators, we've heard transporters, we've heard holodecks.
Warp
That's
speed.
New.
Yeah.
No.
But that's a great
It's a unique.
physical
Vulcan thing.
technology. The Vulcan neck pinch.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, Clint, this has been such a great experience to get to talk to you. I know the three of us, all of us, are going to remember this interview for probably the rest of our lives, to be honest with you. But again, thank you for doing this. And I truly do hope we get to see you in Vegas next year, because all three of us are going to be there.
Well,
Yes.
listen, Kat and I, and probably our daughter, we would love to participate. It is the 60th.
Yes, it
Yes,
is.
it is. Yes, it
Awesome.
is.
All right. Well, I think we're going to thank you again, and I hope you have a lovely evening. Have a good night. Bye.
Thank you for watching The Transporter Room. For just $5 per month, enjoy ad-free access to this episode and all previous ones, plus exclusive bonus content. Sign up now on Patreon.